Welcome to Nimble Minds Talks of Self and Spirituality, where we talk about different philosophical perspectives as well as spiritual practices. And I just talk about topics I find interesting and I believe can bring some different insights, okay, and things to think about. So, with that being said, the topic of this video is just going to be my perspective on relationships. This is going to be a part two. I'd already have a part one, and this is the second part. So, with that being said, let's get into it. So, when it comes to relationships, personally, I do believe relationships are a great thing, okay? When people come together, man, woman, whoever's in love, right? Whoever wants to be together, I think that's a great thing. And that can offer a lot of benefits, right? Not only are people enjoying each other's presence and each other's time together, they can, share passions, share hobbies, and even grow their passions and grow their hobbies through their mingling together. Okay, and people get to find out about themselves in relationships. And after I just said all that, that's about where all the greatness for relationships stops, in my opinion. And that's where you have to look at it from a different perspective, in my opinion. So relationships can be great in that aspect. And then after time passes, this is my perspective, right? And from my experiences, usually when it comes to relationships, that's when things like resentment can start. That's when things and issues start to pop up. And that's where it can be a distraction. That's where relationships can become a distraction, because then what once was two people really appreciating each other's time, appreciating each other's hobbies and passions, and just really loving each other turns into resentment, turns into envy, and then you're just right back at square one, giving into all the temptations, right? Now you're arguing, now you're dealing with unnecessary drama that you don't need to be dealing with in your life, and that's when the relationships can become an issue, okay? So can relationships be good? Yes. But that's why you have to be careful when you are engaging in these things, because it can bring issues, okay? At the end of the day, especially in the society we're in now, there's a lot of different influences that can be on a relationship, okay? If people have their smartphones, so there's always a type of influence there, especially if it's a person who's on social media pretty often, okay? And that I'm talking about people that have, the Instagrams and the all the types of medias where you can talk to and, see anything and everything. Me personally, I just have YouTube. I have no other social media except YouTube, okay? And I'm on YouTube pretty frequently, even then, okay? But compared to the other ones, it's not as social. I'm really just on here watching videos. That's pretty much it. But there's a lot of different influences that can come onto a relationship that sometimes are just not going to be able to be accounted for. And even if you can account for it and you're like, okay, this is going to be something that puts a strain on a relationship, it's still going to put a strain on the relationship, and the relationship still may not last, okay? So that's when a relationship can become an issue and it can become a distraction, okay? So that's why people should just be aware of that, in my opinion, when getting into relationships and getting into things like that, because at the end of the day, it should be something where I'm not saying it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, because it's probably not, right? But it should be something where, for the most part, you guys enjoy each other's time, you guys enjoy each other's energy, okay? And that should be what you guys need to do. But once it starts, taking away from your time, and it starts taking away from your energy, and it starts stressing you out, that is no longer something you should ever be a part of, in my opinion, okay? Some people say, hey, relationships, it comes with sacrifice, it comes with this. Well, you go have a relationship. And that's my perspective on that, because at the end of the day, you have to be the person that's going to make a decision on whether or not you want to enter a relationship and have to give up certain things eventually, if it's going to come to that, okay? Because, at least from what it seems about relationships, that's what it's like, right? Eventually, there's going to come a time where people are just going to have to give up certain things. And if that's what you want to be a part of, then okay, you're going to have to make that conscious decision. But if you're a person who wants to stay focused, you're a person who's engaged in those, resisting those temptations, okay, then you have to understand that a relationship can be a gateway. A relationship can be a doorway to invite temptation, extra issues in your life that are not necessary, okay? Well, nimble minds, nimble minds. I hear you. Nimble minds. What do you mean a relationship can be a gateway to invite issues into your life, when you just said it could have all these positive things, right? That's very true. Relationships can have a lot of positive effects on your life, but they can also be a gateway that invite a lot of issues and unnecessary drama in your life. Well, how does that happen? Well, eventually, most relationships come to an end, okay? So when eventually that relationship comes to an end, right, there you know, the what people mostly want is the relationship ends on a good note. Okay, that's the, desired outcome, right? It ends on a good note. Okay, at the end of the day, the relationship's ending, but you guys understand why. You guys can go each other's separate ways. Hi, bye, kind of thing. All right, we move on. But in a lot of cases, that's not what happens. In a lot of cases, there is resentment that is withheld, okay, and held over in relationships, and then it starts to show up in unnecessary drama, okay. Now it's just yelling, shouting matches, okay, and maybe you're not even yelling. Now people are just saying things that don't even need to be said, okay, but because they're feeling a certain type of way, now they want to try to say something that's just gonna hurt you in any way that they can, okay. That's how people are. That's what people do. So that's what you need to be aware of when it comes to the relationships, and that's how you can invite unnecessary drama and unnecessary issues into your life, okay, because now you're getting into these arguments, okay, in this relationship. Now you're stressed out, okay. Now you have to have a drink, okay. Now you have to have a smoke, okay. Now you have to go back and forth, okay. Now you have to start gossiping with everybody, okay, because now it's like, they're like, hey man, what's going on with this relationship? Now you got to tell them this. Now you got to, if that's what you want to do, okay? Me personally, if I was ever in a relationship and we fell out, look, just leave me alone, okay? I'm over here, you're over there for a reason, okay? I'm moving on. It is what it is, okay? But not everybody can do that. I realize not everybody can do that. Some people, when it's a relationship and they fall out, it's just like there has to be some kind of, you know what I'm saying? And that's where the issues start. That's where the drama start. Not me personally. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not no drama person. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to do any of that. But there's some people that they get into it, okay? Because guess what? They put a lot of time and effort into a relationship, okay? They met this woman met this guy. They really care about each other, okay? At least at the start. And then after that, everything just, just disappears. And it's like it never happened. And now they're both mad because it's like, I thought this, I thought that. But that's the reality of relationships, okay? Eventually, most relationships come to an end. And if they don't come to an end, it gets to a point where people are literally just tolerating each other, okay? And at the end of the day, you're going to have to be a person that has to ask yourself that. Do you want to just tolerate somebody? Do you just want to be around somebody just because you want to say that you have a partner, okay? Or are you going to be honest with yourself and be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with that, okay? That's not something that's for me. And then you move accordingly, okay? Because at the end of the day, one thing I can understand is that relationships are not for everybody. There's some people who can be in relationships and it works great. Some people are in relationships and it does not work great. Me personally, at least from, the outside looking in, right, for my life and just seeing how other things pan out, relationships are not for me, okay? I can tell you that right now. I just don't have a high tolerance for, it's not even drama. I would just say just like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. I really don't know how to describe it because it's not drama or issues. It's just like if I was in a relationship and like there was a sign we were about to start arguing or something, like I'm just be done. I'd be like, no, like that's literally it. That's about it. Like I don't have, it's not like like a filter or anything. I would just be like, dude, I'm not doing this. And that's it. And then it's over. Like that's me. Okay. So for me, I understand my approach may be different than most people, okay, but that's literally how I would approach that. Like, I would be like, well, I guess we're not meant to be together, and we're just gonna have to move on with our lives. I wish you the best, and then that's it. So me personally, that's how I would handle it. But not everybody's gonna handle a relationship like that. Okay, some people have to have drama in their relationship. Some people got to drag stuff out. Some people got to go talk to this person, talk to this person. Some people need marriage counseling. Some people need relationship counseling. Me personally, I'm not doing all that, but that's what you need to be aware of, though, is that these relationships can start to take a lot of things away from you and your time, okay, and cause unnecessary drama, unnecessary stress that you don't need in your life, okay. And a lot of times there is peer pressure. What do I mean peer pressure? Nimble minds, what is peer pressure? Hold on, don't forget, there's also societal pressure. Nimble minds, what is societal pressure? Let's talk about it. Great questions. I love it. When it comes to peer pressure, a lot of times people have people around them, whether that's family or friends, okay, or even coworkers around that are asking them, hey, you're gonna get into a relationship? Okay, oh, you're in a relationship. How's your relationship going? Okay, you need to find somebody. That's what it's about. Find somebody to live this life with and just go through all the struggles with, okay? And that's the type of pressure. And there's people that are going to fall for that. And there's people that are going to go and get in a relationship, and then now everything's great, honeymoon phase, and then after that fades away, next you know, here's the drama, okay? Here's a side of this person that you didn't think you would see, okay? Who is this person? This isn't the person I fell in love with. That's always a line or something. So then people start dealing with that stuff. And then they end up in a situation they didn't even need to be in, okay? They end up in a situation that is not necessary. It's not like they had to be in a relationship, right? But they, fell for the peer pressure. People kept asking them, when are you gonna, when are you gonna, when are you gonna, when are you gonna? And they didn't have the backbone to tell themselves, this isn't for me. And that's just not something I see, okay? So, and then, right? Hey, nimble minds, nimble minds. What about societal pressure? What about societal pressure? Okay, well, we talked about the peer pressure. Now let's talk about societal pressure, okay? We have these things, the smartphones, okay? And even some of the things that go with the peer pressure go with the societal pressure. You have things within the society, right? With a structure of society that tell you, hey, you need to be in a relationship to be valuable. You need to be married to be valuable, okay? And at the end of the day, I do advocate for people, yeah, if you want to get married, get married. I would say get married, you know what I'm saying? Me personally, I'm not doing it. But for the people out there, hey, if you want to get married, go get married. So think about the societal pressures, though. For the way a society is structured, you need to be married and have a significant other to be perceived as valuable, okay? With social media, okay, there's a lot of people in relationships. You may see a lot of people promoting the best life, living their best life side of a relationship, and that's not even necessarily the truth. That's not even the case, okay? Because on this channel, I love telling the truth, and the truth is that it ain't always sunshine and rainbows with the stuff you see on the internet, okay? That's why you can't fall for it, okay? Silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids. Once again, the truth is not everything is sunshine and rainbow. That's why I say resist the temptations, because then you will be able to see the sun shining a lot more, okay? When you resist these temptations and you resist the lust, okay, and you don't subtract from your plus and you add to it, okay? Because the reality is it's not all sunshine and rainbows, okay? If you're going to be out here in these relationships, okay, sometimes they do not work out, and when they do not work out, there's a lot of emotions involved, okay? And you just being the way of the world, the way of nature, the way of the universe, you can't control other people. There's nothing wrong with that, but you don't know how somebody's going to react if something doesn't work out in a relationship, okay? So why would you even put yourself in that situation, okay? Why would you even put yourself in a situation where now you got to deal with all these emotions and things like that could distract you from your purpose, from your goal, from your mission, right? Because you wanted some pleasure, because you wanted to have somebody on your shoulder, okay? At the end of the day, look, people getting lonely, it's natural, it's a human thing, human interaction. I'm with all that. Interact with people, right? But if you a relationship though, like that's if that's what you want to do, okay, but just understand that there is a price to pay. There's things that people do give up naturally if they're in a relationship, because they're just going to be focused on someone else with their time, okay? And it's natural. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't a bad thing, but it's just part of a relationship, okay? It's like if you're a person who has a job and a career and you run like a big organization, naturally you're gonna spend time doing that, so you're gonna have less time for something else. It's the same thing with a relationship. It's not good, bad, it's just part of it. Like if you're in a relationship, you're gonna spend a lot of time on it to make sure it's okay, that you're going to lose time somewhere else, and that's probably yourself. You're gonna lose a lot of time for your spirit and your soul and yourself and your health, okay? So that's what you need to be aware of. And you're going to lose that time, and then you're going to be inviting a lot of unnecessary drama into your life, okay? Because now, right, now you done spent so much time with this woman. If you're a woman, you done spent so much time with this man, okay? Now y'all are so emotionally invested because it's just natural, because now y'all sleeping together. Now y'all done, exchange spirits, okay? Now y'all got them soul ties, right? So now y'all really are locked in for real. So it's going to be difficult to just, hang it up and just say bye, because now y'all done spent all that time. So that's what you need to be aware of when it comes to relationships. And that's why I am wary, and I'm very, I would say picky, honestly. I'm not even looking in for relationships right now, but I'm just very, I'm just very aware and cognizant when it comes to that part of relationships, because I understand that, hey, if you're going to do a relationship, you're going to want to do it correctly. And then you have to understand that you could want to do it correctly. You could have all the pieces in place to make it work correctly, and it could still not work, okay? So that's just part of a relationship. That's just part of a relationship. And some people want to be in one. Some people want to take that chance, take that risk. And there's going to be others that are like, I don't know about that, okay? There's going to be people that are not going to be sure about that. And that's perfectly fine. Don't do it. That's my advice, is don't do it. If you have that inkling, if you have that intuition, and you're just like, don't do it, is don't do it, because the last thing you want to do is to have gotten into a relationship and you're already unsure about it, then it doesn't work and it derails your whole mission, your whole goal, and then you're like, dang, I shouldn't have done that. Don't be that person. Don't be the person that already is like, I'm not really sure if a relationship's for me. Then you go get in one anyway, and then don't be that person, okay? Because leave some for the rest of everybody, right? There's plenty of fish in the sea, right? There's plenty of women out there. There's plenty of people who want to be in a relationship. Let them go be in a relationship. Let them go be happy, hold hands, and skip down the aisle. Let them do that, okay? And shout out to them. Shout out to the people who are doing that, right? Let them do that. But it's not for everybody. It is not for everybody. I'm going to say that again. It is not for everybody, okay? And while we are on the topic of relationships, I'm going to go ahead and throw this topic in there as well. Children, okay? Children are not for everybody, okay? Especially in the society we live in today. We talked about the peer pressure. Nimble minds, nimble minds, nimble minds. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, what about the children? Can you be pressured into having children? Can you be pressured into believing that you need to be children to be valuable and you need to have children to have a type of purpose? I am glad you asked that question. Absolutely. And that is one thing that I talk about as well, because when it comes to children are very important. Obviously, the adults, obviously the people in front, right, they're also very important as well, because they lead with the different ideas and the different things that are going to be coming up. But not only that, and also they work off the things that have already been placed here, right, by people who have in civilization that have been along before us, right? But at the end of the day, let's talk about those children, right? Let's talk about the children. The children are very important. And I really do love children. I appreciate children, and I don't want children, but I understand the value that children hold, okay? And let's answer those questions. Can people in society be peer pressured into having children? Absolutely, okay? That's when it comes back to the family. That's when it comes back to your friends and your peers. You may have people out there in your family. When are you going to have a child? When are you going to get with somebody? You may have people out there in your friend group already have a child, already, in that mother role. If you have a female friend, or if you have a guy friend, they're in that father role, okay? You're going to have people out there that are telling you, maybe if you don't know what to do, just have a child. Whoever tells you that, don't ever ask them for advice again. I'm going to say that again. If somebody ever tells you that to figure out your purpose, you need to have a child, don't ever ask them for advice again, okay? That might be harsh, okay? But if you need to bring another life form in here to figure out what you need to do here, that's an issue to me personally. But hey, I have heard people say that. I have literally heard people say that. It's just, it is what it is. But once again, that's a way that you can face some pressure in having children. Now, let's talk about the societal pressure as well. You have your smartphone, okay? On the smartphone, you're going to have different social medias. You're going to see people posting pics with their child, posting up with their little gift from God, posting up with the children of the light, the children of the sun, if they got the melanin. So, at the end of the day, okay, there is the pressure out there it's going to be on some people, and they're going to be feeling like, dang, man, maybe I should just have a child. Maybe that's just the thing to do. That's the adult thing to do. Well, let me tell you something. The adult thing to do is to be responsible. The adult thing to do is to resist temptations. The adult thing to do is to say no when you could be saying yes. The adult thing to do is to understand that, A, you have bills to pay, and you're going to do that. But at the end of the day, you understand that the temptations are there every step of the way, though. The temptations, the lying, the deceit, the disgust, the jealousy, the gluttony, and the lust is there every step of the way. The mature thing to do, if you ask me, the adult thing to do, if you even want to put things, you're right, because I'm putting that in quotes, the adult thing to do, because everybody wants to say this is adult, this is man, that. At the end of the day, it seems like people confused out here, because of going out here and creating broken families and sleeping around and doing all this stuff is the man thing to do. I don't know what's going on out here, but look, what I'm trying to tell you is that at the end of the day, one of the things that you can do that will actually bring you some value is to control those temptations, okay? And to understand that the children are important, okay? And just as people feel like it's important to have children, one of the most important decisions may be to realize you don't need to have children, okay? Once again, I'm going to say this again. As important as people want to make it seem that you need to have children, maybe one of the important decisions you're ever going to have to make is to understand you do not need to bring a child into this situation, okay? Well, I'm going to say that one more time. For the people for the people in the back, for the people wherever you're at. I'm gonna say that one more time for the people in the back, for the people wherever you're at. one of the most important decisions you're going to have to make, okay, is not only understanding that, okay, people out here are saying that you need to have a child, bring a child into this world, but one of the most important decisions is that maybe you're going to have to realize you don't need to bring a child into this situation, okay? Maybe you don't need to bring a child into this extraness, okay? So at the end of the day, there's a lot of pressure coming from every way, and you're just going to have to understand whether to go or whether to stay, okay? Because at the end of the day, that is some of the pressure. Children. Some people would love to think that because, a child is here, now all of a sudden, that's just like, no, that's not, no, okay? No, bring a child into this world, can it give people, right, another sense of purpose? Yes, it can bring a child into the world, give people that boost they need to understand, okay, there is responsibilities I need. Maybe I shouldn't be out here lusting all the time and doing all these things, giving into temptation so I can set an example. Absolutely. But you should not have to have a child to understand that, okay? You should not have to ever be in that situation where you have to bring another life form from the ether, from the source, in order for you to understand for what you need to do, okay? You shouldn't have to do that. Okay, for people out there, whoever's watching, whoever's listening, that feels pressure into having a child, you don't need to have a child, okay? If you feel pressured into having a child, don't have a child, okay? Because you shouldn't even feel pressure. It should be somewhere it's like, you already know, I want to have children, okay? So it shouldn't even be a question for you. If you feel pressured, maybe you have another purpose. Maybe you have another calling, okay, for you. And maybe that calling is to not bring children into this situation, okay? Maybe that calling is for you to understand that you need to withstand so you don't sink in the quicksand, okay? Maybe your calling is something else. Maybe your calling is something different than just having kids, okay? Let's talk about it. Having kids is easy. Having kids is easy. Let's talk about it. Having kids is easy, okay? Let's really talk about it. Having children is easy, okay? There's people who have children by accident all the time. There's people who have children because they're giving into lust all the time. There's people out here who are having children because they're just sleeping around all the time. There's people out here who are aborting children all the time, okay? Let's really talk about it, okay? So let's not act like having children is some kind of, I had a child. Well, that's great, okay? What about the child in you? Did you take care of the child in you before you decided to bring another child into this world to take care of? Did you take care of the child in you before you decided to bring another child into this world to take care of? Because if you didn't, I don't want to hear it. If you didn't, I do not want to hear it, okay? If you did not take care of the child in you before you brought another child into this world, I do not want to hear it, okay? At that point, you're just making excuses and you're trying to bring another child into this world so you can blame it for your shortcomings, okay? At the end of the day, you're just trying to bring a child into this world so you can blame it for your shortcomings, okay? If you did not take care of the child in you before you brought a child through, then I do not want to hear it because you're just trying to bring that child into this world so you can blame it for your shortcomings, okay? So let's really talk about it, because children are a big responsibility. And I'm sure the people that do have children out there understand that, how big of a responsibility children are, okay? So that's why that is a big decision, okay? For example, buying a house, okay? When it comes to buying a house, okay? First of all, don't ever ask me for any advice when it comes to buying a house. I have never bought a house in my life. Don't really intend to. Don't got house money. But when it comes to buying a house, right, that's a big decision. Because you understand that, okay, I'm going to have to buy a house. Okay, where I buy the house is important. Maybe the weather's important. Does it have a history of this? Okay, what kind of structure, what type of materials the house made of? 1-story, 2-story. Okay, does it have water, heat, things like that? The electricity work? Does it have a history of going out? Is it a modern house? How long has it been here? Is it durable? What's going on with the community? Is there stuff around close by? Because you might be there for a while. So when it comes to buying a house, there's a lot of things to consider. Once again, when it comes to buying a house, there's a lot of things to consider because it's such a big decision, okay? And a lot of people ponder on buying a house for years. So think about a child. Think about a child. Yeah, a child is more important than a house, correct? It absolutely is. A child is more important than a house, correct? It absolutely is, okay? A child is more important than a house, correct? It absolutely is, okay? So if there's people out there that are going to give years and all this time before they even make a move on buying a house or even think about buying a house, then you need to give times Kaioken times 3, Kaioken times 10, that amount of time before you have a child. You hear me? You need to give Kaioken times 3, Kaioken times 5, but that amount of time before you have a child. Do you hear me? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to spend that much time on a place to stay, then you can spend that amount of time on a baby, okay? If you're going to spend that amount of time on a place to stay, you can spend that amount of time on a child. You need to spend the extra amount of time on whether or not you want to have a child, okay? If it's going to take you 2 years on whether or not you want to buy this house, it need to take you 8 years on whether or not you want to have a child. If it's going to take you 3 years, 4 years on whether you want to buy this house in this area, it needs to take you 15 years before you make a decision on that child, okay? That's my advice, okay? It might be harsh. Hey, I'm a person that would beg you to think twice, okay, before you just jump into some of these decisions that could change your life, okay? I'm a person that's gonna beg you to think twice before you jump into a decision that could change your life, okay? So when it comes to children, okay, and relationships, there is pressure from the outside. Yes, there can be, okay, but once you resist temptations, once you resist the lust, and you feed your spirit, you feed your soul, and you turn that negative into a plus, it will be easier to resist those pressures, okay? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna understand, if you get into that relationship, who is it in that relationship? It's you in that relationship, not them. If you have a child, who is it with that child? It's you with that child, not nobody else, okay? And yes, there's people and there's communities around to help you, right, that have had their families, right, to help you. But at the end of the day, it's you in that relationship. It's you and that other person, nobody else. It's you dating that person in that relationship, and that person dating you, nobody else. It's you with that child and that other person with that child, all together, and nobody else, okay? And that's how it should be, okay? At the end of the day, you're going to have people there to support you, and there's people there to help you, but people can't live your life for you. That's what I'm getting at. People can't live your life for you. That's what I'm getting at. People cannot live your life for you. That's what I'm getting at, okay? And you shouldn't want anybody to live your life for you, because you got this chance to live life, so you got to live it, okay? And maybe living life is making those decisions to think twice, okay, that this relationship might not be right, okay? So that's what my perspective is when it comes to relationships, okay? And children, right? Be very careful with who you're spending your time with, how you're spending your time with people, because that stuff matters, okay? At the end of the day, people do rub off on each other in one way or another. Okay, so are you going to spend this time with this person and you guys have a great time, right? Things may not work out. You part ways and, end it on a good note. I hope so. Okay, but if the drama arises, if it gets to a point where nasty things are being said about this person, I advise you to get out of there. I repeat, do not try to say anything negative and hurtful back. Not because you can, because you surely can. You surely can say some things, but because it's not worth it, okay? Why would you want to stoop to that level? Why would you ever want to go to that level, okay? Especially if you're a person watching this or you're a person listening to this, okay? Then that means you've been doing what you need to do to resist the temptations, to resist the lust. And if you've been doing what you need to do, why would you even stoop to that level? Why would you even stoop to that level? Why would you even go back and forth with these people that want to go back and forth? Okay, why would you even do that? Okay, you made so much progress. Why would you go back? Okay, why would you even do that? Okay, so that's my perspective when it comes to relationships. Now let's get back to the children. Okay, when it comes to the children are very important. Children are special. I love children. Children have the light. Okay, yes, they do. But that's why it's important to think twice. Children have the light. That's why it's important to think twice, okay, and whether or not you want to bring a child into this world. Because let's talk about it. People already have the faculties for the children. The children are pretty much here, if you ask me. The child is pretty much here because you already have the man who has the seed, and you have the woman who has the deed, pretty much. You just got to go sign the deed, right? Now, let me chill. But you have the man who has the seed, and you have the woman who has the egg, right? That just needs to be, fertilized by the man's seed. So the children are really already here. The children are already here. It's just up to you to do the act that's going to bring them, past the gates, okay? That's going to bring them past the gates. The children is really already here. It's just up to you on whether or not you going to make that decision to bring them past the gates, if you get what I'm saying, okay? The children are already here. We know what's going to happen. But it's up to you to, do the act that's going to bring them past the gate. So I have a question for you. If the children are pretty much already here, okay, because once you, fertilize the egg, it only takes 9 months. It only takes less than a year, and you got a child here. Less than a year, and you got a child here. Less than a year, people live their 70 years of life. At 1 year, now they have a child. 1 year out of those 70 years is all it took for that child to develop, and now you have a baby, okay? So really, the stuff happens pretty quickly. So with that being said, if the children are already here, ask yourself, what would you want your child to say, okay? What would you want your child's perspective to be, right? Before you have that child, before you bring that child through those gates, okay? Do you want to have a conversation with that child? And it is, what was happening? What was going on here? Was there no self-control? Like, what was the decision-making looking like? Because, I got the signal to come through, and I'm like, okay, everything's looking okay. Like, I came through, and then I came, and it was like there was so much drama and issues going on. Do you want that to be the conversation you have with your child? Or do you want it to be, you could have made that decision, okay, but instead you did the unpopular popular thing, okay, and you decided to withhold from your urges, okay. You didn't bring me through the gates unnecessarily, okay. You were like, wait. You didn't bring me through the gates unnecessarily. You were like, wait. I'm gonna say it again. You didn't bring me through the gates unnecessarily. You were like, wait, okay. So you want to, I would prefer that conversation. I'm dapping up my child like I did it. Like, it could have happened, but at the end of the day, I know this was not the time for you, okay? Or do you want to have the other conversation, which is you couldn't control. Or do you want the conversation to be, you couldn't control yourself, okay? So now the child's here, and that's the conversation. You couldn't control yourself. That's just, was lusting out here, so now this is what it is. That could be the conversation. That could be the conversation. But instead of putting yourself in a situation to where, now you have to think about how to try to cover up things and try to cure things, just prevent certain things from happening, okay? That's my perspective when it comes to relationships and when it comes to children, okay? If you're in a relationship, be careful and understand that relationships do take time. Relationships take work, and at the end of the day, relationships can bring you things that are positive, that are beneficial, that are fruitful, but the reality is a lot of times relationships don't always work out, okay? And when they don't work out, the last thing you want to do is be a person who is entertaining dramas, entertaining all the gossip, and now you're falling into your lower self. Now you're falling into lower things and lower vibrations now, because you're giving into those temptations, okay? Once again, you don't want that to be the case. So appreciate relationships. Understand they are beautiful things. They need to be handled with care. And as soon as you sense any despair, it's time for you to get out of there, okay? And then when it comes to my perspective on children, don't be pressured into having children, okay? It's not for everybody. Children are definitely not for everybody. And if there's anybody out there that has children, you don't need to feel guilty for having children. Children are amazing. Love that child. For the people out there that don't want to have children, don't plan on having children, you definitely don't need to feel guilty. You're perfectly fine. You're doing nothing wrong, okay? Not everybody's meant to have a child. Some people want to have children, okay? It's not for everybody, okay? And at the end of the day, there's people who have children who made a good decision and now they're having children. At the end of the day, there's people who are not having children that still made a good decision because now they were just being honest with themselves and they were like, this is just something that's not for me. And rather than try to lie to myself and trick myself into a situation that's not beneficial at all, I'm just going to avoid that so I don't have to deal with it, okay? So that is valid as well, okay? Either decision could be valid. Children are not for everybody, and you would most likely rather be on the side of, well, children weren't for me, I didn't have them, and I kind of, it probably would have been nice, but I'm okay with not having them, then being on the side of, dang, the children are already here, so it don't really matter what my opinion changes to, what my perspective changes to, what I learned, because the child's here. Child's already here. It's too late for that. So, with that being said, I hope that you could, draw something from this video in a positive way and you could apply it to your life that results in positive outcomes and positive changes. I really do. With that being said, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.